The most destructive president in history, a traitor to the West. Our ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, is probably regretting those comments right about now as Donald Trump prepares to move back into the White House. There's little love lost between the two, so will our former Prime Minister even be welcome in the Oval Office? Professor Simon Jackman is an expert in US politics. He's lived and breathed it for the past 30 years, both here and in the States. He joins me. Nice to see you, Simon.
Great to be with you.
So we're 24 hours on. How do you think news of a second Trump presidency is settling in?
Into Australia, I think a little bit of shock. I think a lot of people here were of two minds. One is, of course, he's going to win. And then there's the other camp. There's no way America could possibly do this again. So I think a little bit of realism is starting to creep in. And of course, a lot of questions starting to emerge. What does it mean for us here?
OK, so what does it mean for our relationship with the US?
Look, there's a couple of different ways to skin this. I think the top line, the government-to-government defence intel heavy part of the relationship, continuity.
OK, so the alliance is under no threat?
At a high level, no. There may be some bumps in the road once you have the high variance character of Donald Trump on the road. And that was a really interesting challenge for Australia during the first 4 years of Trump. There's a lot of experience on how to manage that. You get up close and personal to this guy, a bit of flattery, all of that. I think we've got some runs on the board with how to navigate that. But I think the alliance per se is in great shape. AUKUS is exactly the kind of deal that Donald Trump thinks all the allies should be signing up for. So I think we're almost the model ally from a Trump perspective, no problem there. Keep an eye on tariffs, though. Now, that's going to be really interesting. Does Trump inadvertently blow up the global economy, and is there fallout for Australia in that? There's a chance, though, that in the short term, tariffs on China actually mean we get more Chinese goods at lower prices. It could actually, in a weird way, end up being good for Australia in the short term. OK, now there was something in there you talked about with Trump and flattery. We have a small problem. I mean, our Prime Minister has said some not so nice things in the past, but you know, we'll move on from that. That was 2017. But let's focus on our ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd. He said Trump is, and I quote, the most destructive president in history, and described him as a traitor to the West. Does that hurt our relationship with the US? It's unhelpful in the short term, but I'm going to go back to there is so much at stake for both Australia and the United States in this relationship working for both sides. That will get managed. Pragmatism, I expect, will prevail. There is a long history, by the way, and I'd point to J.D. Vance, Trump's vice president, as being on this long list of people who at one time or another have had bad things to say about Donald Trump. I think he called him reprehensible. At least that, and perhaps more than once, but there is always a way back with Donald Trump. A public act of contrition, and I think behind the scenes a lot of diplomacy to make sure that the relationship is bigger than whatever animus in the past may have been between Rudd and Trump personally. Do you think Kevin Rudd is capable of that? There are two parts to the Rudd story in Washington. He has enormous cred with Washington's think tank community and with Congress, with both Democrats and Republicans. That will help him a lot. His problem is penetrating Trump's inner circle, given this baggage he's carrying. That's the piece Team Australia is going to have to work on. We did note today that Kevin Rudd has been deleting those anti-Trump tweets. He did say no to an interview, but is there another take on this? Could he just, what if he just turns around, owns it and says, OK, Don, prove me wrong? I don't think that would be wise. I think diplomacy, like sausage making, is perhaps best seen at the end rather than the process. But I expect there'll be a lot of behind the scenes kissing and making up. So I think Americans sent a very strong message with their vote. What can our politicians, and I guess particularly Anthony Albanese, if he wants to stay in the lodge, take from that? I think that this election, we are over-interpreting. America is embracing Trumpism. I don't know that that's the story as much as they're sending a signal. We want someone, there are two candidates on offer, we want the one that's best posed to take care of cost of living pressures. And the question I fully expect Peter Dutton to be asking is, are you better off or worse off than you were 3 years ago in the Australian case, 4 years ago in the American case? That's a question incumbent governments around the world have been struggling with. You've got to deal with that before you can ask voters to start thinking about, abortion, about even immigration,
or climate
about
change,
or Donald Trump being a threat to democracy. Those are going to fall down the list while economy stays as issue number one.
Well, all you're thinking about that point is, okay, how do I earn as much money as I can to look after my family, be able to send them to school and pay the bills?
Kamala Harris was not talking about that. Donald Trump was.
Yeah. Okay, so then if we look at Donald Trump with control of the Senate, the House, White House and a Supreme Court on his side, is that too much power, and who is going to rein him in?
A lot of pressure will come on the lower courts, particularly as he starts to roll back environmental regulation, food safety regulations, because the other two institutions, Senate and House, are probably in his corner for the time being.
Are they going to then do whatever he wants?
He is the king. This is a victory, and we shouldn't understate this. It is his. If it wasn't his party before, my goodness, it is now. He is the king, and the lion is going to eat, right? And they will follow him, and he's going to enact some of the things he talked about, and there's not much anybody can do about that, even if they wanted to.
That's going to be very interesting. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.